We live in a world where there is more access to information than ever before. Generations, young and old, are being exposed to radically different ideologies and opinions every day. It can be so overwhelming trying to decipher what's true and what's false. But there is a way. Join me as we discuss some of the toughest questions out there about Christianity, the Bible, and culture. I'm your host, Nick Lackey. Welcome to The Garrison. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Garrison. Today we have Rei Baker with us again. So if you haven't seen part one of my conversation with Rei, who is a non-Christian, and last time we talked about morality quite a lot, then feel free to go and listen to that or watch that one. But today is part two, where we have a whole new set of questions from Rei. And so we introduced them last time. So Rei, do you want to just jump straight into it? It has been a while since that conversation, but for you listening, it may not have been a while. But Rei, why don't you hit us with the first question and we can jump right into it.
Okay, I'd love to. So my next question, it requires a bit of background first. So I learned about this sort of topic, this sort of philosophical topic at uni this year, and yeah, so we were learning about philosophy, and we were learning about like what it means to live a good life. And I learned about this concept, which I've noted down, is by Robert Nozick in a book called Anarchy, State, and Utopia. Now, this book has nothing to do with Christianity or anything, just saying that. But it is about philosophy. And he had this analogy he called the machine. And basically, and I'll ask you this question. He basically said, if there was a machine that if you got in it, you could never leave, but this machine, it like connected to your mind, and everything that you ever like wanted, like everything that would maximize your pleasure, it gives you like the best. You could basically go into a mind life, and it gives you the best life you could possibly have for the rest of your life until you die, and you can't leave. Would you get in the machine?
Right,
but
no.
You are living the best life possible. Like you're going factually, you're going to be the happiest.
No, because I believe in an eternity. I believe in heaven and hell, and I believe that my job on this earth here is to be bringing the good news of Jesus to as many people as I can.
True.
So, sorry, when I first heard that.
In this machine, like, the machine will know this about you. So in the machine, you'll be doing that. But
but it's not real.
Yeah.
I want to be bringing real souls to Christ. I want to be, talking to real people who are actually going to end up in the real hole,
of course.
not just fake stuff. So, no, I would not.
And that makes sense. So, and although you have a unique-ish reason, but most people say no to this, right? Mm-hmm. But most people also say like, oh, what is the meaning of life, or what is the goal of life, or how do you tell if you've lived a good life? They say, well, it's how happy you are, like how much happiness you experienced. And so this analogy was kind of used to say like the thing we desire most isn't eternal pleasure, otherwise we would get in the machine, because that's what we would desire most. So we as beings look for more than just pleasure. And so my question was, is eternal pleasure in heaven something that you would actually want?
Okay. Great question. I think this is a good lead on from the last question, which we talked about on the last podcast about, right and wrong and our purpose on earth as well. I think we talked about that a wee bit. And so, well, again, from the Christian perspective, let's talk about the machine first, and I kind of answered it before when I was talking about, well, no, I believe I have a purpose on earth, and my purpose is to be preaching the gospel or the good news of Jesus to as many people as I can, to be making disciples, which are people who will become Christians and end up in heaven ultimately. I want to be reaching as many people as I can that way, and so that's what my purpose is. So I wouldn't.
For the sake of the analogy, though, I think maybe it's better if we say, let's just imagine the entire earth is Christian and there's no need to make disciples anymore. Okay. Because, so everyone is already Christian. They're going to get in the machine. They're going to love God. They're going to love Jesus. It's from there. Would you get in the machine then?
No, because it's fake.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, but you would live, like factually, you would live the most happiness you could possibly live in your life. But yeah, so let's go from there.
No. Because I don't think happiness in itself is the primary purpose of life.
Right.
Life on this earth, I think the purpose that we are here for is to know God and make God known to others. And that's a bit of a cliche, but I believe it's true, right? You know, as people, we are to have a relationship with God and to have a relationship with others and to make God known to others, okay? So that's the purpose of this earth here. So happiness is often talked about as being, and I can imagine for someone who isn't a Christian, you know, why wouldn't it be the ultimate goal, right? Who doesn't want to be happy for the rest of your life? And so, but no, for the Christian, and in this world where everyone is a Christian, I don't think happiness is the ultimate goal. I think a authentic relationship with each other and most importantly with Jesus Christ is more important, and you wouldn't be able to have an authentic relationship in this machine. But anyway, go ahead, and what's the analogy?
Well, that was the analogy. The analogy was the machine. It was so you know how if you get in the machine, you're going to experience the most pleasure.
Yeah.
That's kind of like going to heaven. In a sense, you know, I know everyone has different descriptions of heaven, but a lot of people say, you know, it's basically, you know, it's heaven, like it's everything, you know, it's everything you would want. So it's like, is that so? In essence, like I'm not to say heaven is fake, but in essence, kind of getting the machine is kind of like in a way going to heaven. You're going to a new place that is very pleasurable, you know. So, is that, and you know, I assume in heaven, you know, you don't have to do any teaching others of God because everyone that's there already has a relationship with God. So is that something that, and you know, and as I said, most people that aren't even Christians still won't get in the machine because they want more than just infinite pleasure, you know, just kind of mindless pleasure. Okay. So you know, relating that to heaven is it's kind of the analogy of heaven, the machine in heaven. Like, is that something? Do people want to go to heaven and just experience pleasure, or? Yeah,
I think heaven is more than just pleasure, right? Obviously, pleasure, you know, being eternally pleasurable is one of the characteristics of heaven, but there's more to it than that. So I'll read. You know, something about, do we actually want eternal? I mean, when I first kind of prepped for the question, I was kind of prepping for, you know, is eternal bliss in heaven, is it something we actually want, right? And so, or are we going to get bored of heaven, you know, that kind of thing.
Well, that's a part of it too,
Yeah, so I'll read from 1 Corinthians. It talks about, it says in verse 50, let me just find it here, it says, "Now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, nor does corruption inherit incorruption. Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised incorruptible." Now, this is talking about the resurrection of dead in the end when Jesus returns. "The dead will be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible has put on incorruption, and this mortal has put on immortality, then we shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory." Now that last part is talking about how Christians will receive a new body, right? An incorruptible body, a sinless body, one that won't, you know, have death, disease, decay, dandruff, all that rubbish. It says, verse 59, "O death, where is your sting? O Hades, where is your victory? The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. But thanks be to God who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ." Now, this is a wee passage about what's going to happen in the end. Basically, every Christian, every person who has repented and put their faith in Jesus is going to receive this new body, and we're going to be in this new body. I'm hoping it'll be, you know, 6 foot and good looking as well. But we're going to be in this new body in which we can then, this incorruptible body, in which we can then go to the new heaven and new earth, which the Bible talks about, and we will live in this world which is no longer corrupted. Okay, now the key here is that because this world is no longer corrupted and there is no sin anywhere on this earth, then nothing bad is really possible, and that no mourning, sadness, depression, anxiety, I'll chuck in there boredom, anything negative is really possible here. And I'm going to read out a quote from a website called Desiring God. And it says this, in heaven though, since we will be with an infinite God, he can be infinitely enjoyed. Jesus Christ is not concerned about running out of ways to keep up with your ever-increasing ability to enjoy him. His character is endlessly deep, unsearchable, and inexhaustible. Imagine the scope of the entire universe, trillions of shining stars burning brighter than the sun, magnificent constellations, billions of spinning galaxies, all magnificent and vast, colourful and mysterious. Yet they are finite. Brilliant though they are, they fall utterly short in comparison to the breadth, length, height, and depth of the love of Christ. His love, grace, kindness, wisdom, power, and mercy each stand as never-ending, infinite universes for all of your affections to delight in. So what it's getting at here is that because we will be in heaven, it's not just you lie down and just, feel really happy and experience lots of pleasures. No, it's you have a relationship with the eternal creator of everything. You have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And because he is the eternal creator of everything, then he can be, as it says here, infinitely enjoyed. And the Bible doesn't really answer this question directly in saying, no, you will not be bored in heaven. But we know that we won't be bored in heaven. We know that we will love heaven, and it will be a place, yes, of eternal bliss and pleasure, but also of relationship with Christ. And I believe it's also going to be a place where there is stuff to do. There are tasks to fulfill, right? There's going to be, I imagine you'll still be able to challenge yourself, right? You still be able to challenge yourself and maybe, I don't know, learn a new language or learn a new skill. And just because sin isn't possible, I don't imagine we're all going to be just 100% the best at everything. I think we'll still be able to learn, right? We'll still be able to learn about God's character and delve deeper into our relationship with him. But because he's an eternal God and we'll be with him for eternity, I think that we will be eternally getting to know him more and more. And this is a concept which will probably become quite hard to understand. Like our brains start to kind of think, oh, eternity, it's a tricky concept. So I'd say short answer is no. I don't think we will get bored in heaven. I think the machine analogy you give, I can see where it's coming from, but I don't think it's the right comparison because you're leaving out the part where there is a relationship with the eternal creator to be had. Of course,
yeah. But I mean, well, the analogy wasn't necessarily will you get bored. It was, is that something you would want to go to? But you have answered like yes.
Yeah, you would want to,
even though it's eternity. And
I wouldn't want to go to the machine, but I want to go to
eternity heaven. Is kind of daunting though. Like that's what is scary for people, about the machine. It's like you're going there and you're going to be there forever. It's like, oh God, what if I don't like it? But you're essentially saying you will like it. And you will like it for eternity.
I think the real heaven, where you're in authentic relationships with God and with other people, because it's real, then you will want it.
Yeah.
Whereas this machine is all fake and stuff. So
exactly. Yeah.
You probably wouldn't want that. And yeah, I think a lot of people imagine heaven as a place like in the clouds where you're just going to be resting and it's really quiet and peaceful. But I think that. It talks about a new earth being created. And if you look at how awesome this earth is, you've got some just marvelous, so many awesome things to do, so many awesome sights to see. You think of the beauty of this world as well. And then you think in the new earth, which isn't corrupted, imagine how much better that's going to be. Imagine how much more we will be able to do. And I don't think we will ever run out of stuff to do because we're within an eternal creator. There's always going to be more to experience and do and learn.
Learning's the biggest thing. If you have nothing to learn, then what do you do?
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing that sells it for me is that if you still have the ability to learn, then you're not going to get bored. I think.
Yeah. And look, honestly, I guess for those listening as well, a lot of what I said is not speculation, but it's not scripture that I'm reading out.
Yeah, no.
So I wouldn't say take it with a grain of salt, but don't quote me as being the source on this. This is just what I think we can interpret from the Bible.
Right.
So in summary, heaven is going to be, the Bible does say actually, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind imagined what God has prepared for us in heaven. So we can't even imagine how wonderful it's going to be, right?
Right.
Which is pretty exciting as a Christian who truly believes this. So, yeah. Anyway, does that answer the question?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Cool.
Very much. So I'll move on to my next question I have here, which my brother gave to me when I asked him about questions that I could ask, that he I'm not sure. I think he heard it in a movie or something.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've got written down is, do you think people in heaven would feel bad for people experiencing hell? And in that way, would it not be considered eternal bliss in heaven because you feel bad?
That's another great question. And that's a really good lead on from our last question as
yeah.
well. So let's get into it. I'll read from Revelation chapter 21, verse 4. And this is Revelation, the last book in the Bible. This is talking about what heaven will be like. It says, "He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." Okay, when it says he will wipe away every tear, it's referring to Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And so what we know from this verse is that we won't be able to experience death, mourning, crying, and pain, for the old order of things has passed away. In other words, those things are only possible on this earth. Okay, so I'll get into explaining why that is in a second, but we know from the Bible at least that it says that we won't be crying or mourning or in pain for these people who are in hell, okay? And so I understand this question, right? Because I have loved ones who aren't Christians, right? I have friends, such as yourself, Ray, who aren't Christians, who I believe if they don't repent and put their faith in Jesus Christ, they will end up in this place called hell, right? And that's concerning for me, deeply, deeply concerning for me. And that is why I make an effort to try and tell people this good news, right? Mm-hmm. And then I let them choose what they want to do with this information. That's my job, is just to let them know, right? I can't force anyone to make a decision to follow Christ, but I completely understand where this question is coming from. And from my perspective on earth right now, I think, yeah, that's a great question. I wonder that myself. When I'm in heaven and I'm enjoying that, then won't I think of my loved ones who are in, or my friends who never repented, and even now, the ones that I know who have already passed away without Christ, I do deeply mourn for them. It's a terrible, terrible thing, and so I'm going to attempt to answer this from what I believe to be as scriptural and as biblical as I can. Again, this is not an issue, as far as I know, which is directly answered in the Bible, but from certain parts of the Bible, such as what we read out before, Revelation 21:4, we can somewhat explain it. So, here's one thing that we'll never do in heaven. We will never question God's justice, wondering, how could he send good people to hell? Okay? And we can question it all we want, but we're never going to disagree with it, because he is the standard of justice. Now, we're never going to be wondering, how could God send good people to hell? Right? As a Christian, we don't really believe in, good people.
Right.
We believe we're all sinners. None of us are perfectly good. Rather, we'll be overwhelmed with God's grace, marveling at what he did to send bad people to heaven. So rather than think, oh, God sent good people to hell, he sent my loved ones, my friends to hell, how could he send good people there? Instead, we'll be thinking, man, God is an amazing God that he even saved a bad person like me to spend eternity with him. And I'm going to read out a quote from a website as well I found. So this is not my own saying. It says, "Although it will inevitably sound harsh, I offer this further thought." This is the author speaking. "In a sense, none of our loved ones will be in hell. Only some whom we once loved. Our love for our companions in heaven will be directly linked to God, the central object of our love. We will see him in them. We will not love those in hell, because when we see Jesus as he is, we will love only and will only want to love whoever and whatever pleases and glorifies and reflects him. What we loved in those who died without Christ was God's beauty we once saw in them. When God forever withdraws from them, I think they'll no longer bear his image and no longer reflect his beauty. Although they will be the same people, without God they'll be stripped of all the qualities we loved. Therefore, paradoxically, in a sense, they will not be the people we loved." And then he goes on to say, "I cannot prove biblically what I've just stated, but I think it rings true even if the thought is horrifying." Okay, now, and I'll agree with him, we can't really prove biblically what he is saying, but I think this is an interesting point, because he's saying the people who are in hell, everything that we loved them for, or everything we loved about them is now stripped away, because, you don't when you think of someone you love, you love them as a person, but I guess the parts that you loved about them were good parts, right? They were, and ultimately, if God withdraws from them, and they're separated from Him in hell, then they will have no good quality to love once more. So I guess that's what he's gone at in this paragraph. That's what the author of the paragraph is saying, and I think that again, because it's not a topic which is directly talked about in the Bible, it's hard to give a definitive answer. But what I do know for sure is that we won't be feeling bad about those in hell. I may not be able to explain why completely. I think that what we just talked about gives some explanation and some food for thought. But I do know that we won't be feeling bad in heaven.